Okay, we are live, episode 2. Got a new guest that will be a regular on the pod. We're going to start off talking about addiction. So what are your thoughts on addiction, bro?
Well, I think addiction... What type of addiction?
Just
alcoholism or video
just
games
being addicted to anything. We'll start there, and then we can start branching off.
Okay. Well, I think addiction, the root cause is the lack of discipline.
Yes, I agree.
So, if you're addicted to something, you have a lack thereof discipline to stop doing it, and a lot of people build an addictive behavior through repetition, more so than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's, heroin or meth.
Yeah, because you do meth once, and you're all just fucking...
You're chasing that dragon.
You're just You're a tweaker.
No, you're chasing that dragon forever.
Yeah.
But
I do think that addiction has a negative connotation for most of the time, but it's good to be addicted to some things because addiction is, like you said, linked to self-discipline, and self-discipline is based off of your habitual acts. Like, you wake up and you go to the gym every day, that's a habit, and then you become addicted to going to the gym, like a lot of people do. You wake up and you do something, and it just feeds your brain a certain amount of dopamine or serotonin, and we obviously know that certain things give you more, like drugs, alcohol,
Sex.
what else? Sex.
Video games, your phone, your cell phone.
Video games. Yeah, just consumption of media. It's constantly giving you this false sense of dopamine.
Well, let's take a step back, and I do think addiction is a negative word.
Okay.
I think it's a word that is inherently used to describe bad or behavior that should be corrected. Because if it's positive behavior, would it be called an addiction? Or would it be called...
I don't know.
Like, what is that called?
A routine.
Well, if it's negative behavior, you would say you're addicted to that. And people often throw that word around neglectfully.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're like, if like a mom, like if you're sick and when you were a kid, your mom was like, give me your phone. It's your damn phone making you sick. But it's like...
Which might have been true. But anyways.
Maybe. But I think addiction is thrown around, like I said, haphazardly. Like, if you use your phone all the time, and like Thanksgiving just happened, and if your parent always sees you on your phone, or an old head that wants to give you shit, oh, you're addicted to your phone, and then you look at them and go, well, you're addicted to being bad at life. And that kind of can stop them in their tracks. But like addiction, or just throwing that word around, like, it's like the new Nazi or the new racist. Like, it's thrown around haphazardly and it's losing meaning. And people often don't know what it means.
I think a lot of people are addicted to things, so tying into what you said, it's losing its meaning because it's becoming normalized because so many people are addicted to so many things now. So many people are addicted to media. So many people are addicted to drugs. So many people are addicted to liquor.
Thank you, mango-flavored vape, sponsored by Stizzy.
They're banning those, actually.
I thought they already did.
Or I guess it's, like, happening, but... yeah, I mean, if you say someone's addicted to something... Like, sometimes I do hear people saying, oh, he's addicted to his job, he's addicted to his hobby. Is that necessarily a bad thing? When does it become a bad thing? When they stop talking to their friends and they stop being social?
I think an addiction, I guess it would just be... Depends on the situation. Like, you're addicted to video games when you play them 16 hours a day, you don't go outside, and you don't take a shower. I think it becomes an addiction when your health starts to decline.
Okay.
So
mentally or physically?
Yeah. Declining of health, I think, should be a good measure of if it's an addiction or not.
That sounds really well spoken. That makes sense because people aren't worried about you until they see it's becoming a problem for you.
And then a lot of the times, depending on what you're addicted to, if you try to wane yourself off of it, it consumes your life. And it's really hard to get off of those things like nicotine. A lot of people that don't realize it, they're addicted to smoking weed. Even though I believe that weed or cannabinoids can be very, like, healing in ways, I think people still get addicted to, whether it be the social aspect of smoking weed with other people, or, I don't know the studies, but maybe there is an addictive nature to cannabinoids.
Yes, maybe. The sad thing is, I feel like we don't realize it's hurting our friends or people we know until it's too late. Like, we don't realize they're falling into addiction until people are really seeking for them to get help, you know? Like, like, the last thing I would want is to find out too late that one of my buddies is addicted to, you know, some really strong drug. Examples being fentanyl or heroin.
Heroin's a perfect example.
And I wouldn't want to see my buddy on the street, but that's why I'm kind of always I try to always check in on my friends and see, at least my close friends, and see how they're doing on a daily basis, you know? And it helps when you have a group of people checking on each other mentally, physically, because I wouldn't want to see one of my buddies on the street. But they're too far gone. Sorry to cut you off, but they're too far gone at that point. They're never going to be the same person.
No, I agree. But I think that we've talked about this a little bit in the past before, where the homelessness is a big problem in the U.S. where it's not in a lot of other places, because in the U.S. you're encouraged to like, have you heard of the, like, not heard but seen the video where it breaks down how many more times, like, you'll see your grandparents, or you'll see your mother, or you'll see your father, and it's like,
yes, the older you get, the less I've seen it. It's a graph.
No, I know what you're talking about. That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about how if you see certain family members only on certain holidays, so there's one Thanksgiving and one Christmas a year. That's 2 times a year that you'll see these family members. Well, over the next 20 or 30 years, you only see them 60 more times before they're dead. So when you break it down like that, like, you are only interacting with these people so many times in America. Whereas in other countries, like, you hear Andrew Tate talking about the brothers who own the gas station, and there's 9, not brothers, but friends, they own a gas station, there's 9 of them. They see each other every day. And here in America, we're encouraged to flee the house right after college. We leave our parents behind. We put them in nursing homes. And you get this homelessness issue because you're not seeing each other every day. And you can fall victim to these addictive behaviors. And if the family unit was more...
if it was different, more centralized, like in other... I know exactly what you're talking about.
It was more valued. Then we wouldn't have all these addictive consequences of what we are, the Industrial Revolution and its consequences, I guess. But that's why you see all these homeless people, because instead of being, oh, that's cousin Jerry on the couch.
On the couch, yes, I've heard that before.
Yeah. So now
explain it.
That's cousin Jerry on the corner, like, going through withdrawal, trying to beg for money.
He's gonna die soon.
Yeah, instead of you bringing him into your house and trying to heal him, whether that means chaining him to a toilet, like Breaking Bad style, or you just help him out.
Yeah.
Like, we know some people who have mentally ill family members that are on their couches currently, and they're helping them out. That's the right thing to do.
It is.
Not putting them in a psych ward where they could get mentally or physically abused by the staff, or, God forbid, give it to the government, because we know government intervention doesn't work. In these cases, things arguably get worse. So, to fight addiction, I think we have to value the family unit more.
I agree. And it's weird growing up in the U.S. and, you know, it might not even be, I know some families are more adamant on the bird leaving the nest more than others. But it's not even like like, I never really got that feeling from my family. I got that more from school and the system growing up. Like, you need to go to college. You need to, like, so you can leave your house, move out. And I understand the value of being independent. I'm not saying being independent is a bad thing, but your family is all you have. That's your closest unit.
I think that's a main issue with being an American is we value our independency so much on a personal level. Like, I think if you looked at, like, any other, like, I don't even know if there's a poll for this, but, like, Americans, we value being independent the most, apart from freedom in any aspect, whether it be away from the government or just being able to be your own individual person. And I think that's exclusively American, where we have this notion that we know better than the person next to us, and it's detrimental oftentimes. But I think, it's a give and take. But Americans, we are too independent oftentimes.
Yes.
And I think we can fix it ourselves, but we can't.
I agree. And, in the U.S., it's weird because it's not like other countries where cost of living is cheaper and you can afford to feed your whole your 12 family, your 2 grandparents, your parents, you and your wife, your kids. It's a lot cheaper there. Here, I couldn't even imagine doing that, when I was older. Providing for your own family, let alone the entire family.
Well, to kind of stray away from, like, the whole point of addiction, me being in the college system, attending a university, and all that, they make it very enticing to become a professor and to keep the chain of college going.
Yes.
Because professors are paid, in my opinion, I wouldn't mind making $75,000 a year teaching a curriculum that has already been fleshed out in its entirety, and I get 3 months off in the summer and a winter break, or if I so please, I could teach during that time. And being a professor, I mean, this might be ignorance speaking, it cannot be that difficult because of how fleshed out most fields are.
Most of the content that you can learn in university, you can find online. I know people that have, read Harvard lectures online. It's all there, the entirety. But
you need that piece of paper.
And it's, this is a very saturated topic. I know so many people are like, oh, college is a wash,
scam,
blah, blah, blah.
Money scam.
But that's just, unfortunately, the world we live in. However, I feel like when it comes to finding a job and you have someone with that piece of paper who applies online, or you have someone without but that is willing to wholeheartedly learn and has already learned as much as they can through self-education, I feel like that person who walks in and has a better attitude and demeanor is more regarded than the person with the piece of paper that tons of other people have. Because what would you value more in an employee? Their ethic, their morals, values, and their hard work, or their credentials?
I think you might have just answered your own question. Credentials prove what you just... Credentials, at least they should outline...
They should.
...the person's ability to perform. But this is where we get into the whole problem of, oh, well, this piece of paper from UCLA looks better than this piece of paper from a community college.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same material.
Yeah. Well, at a community college, you can't get your bachelor's. You only get your AA, and then you transfer. But...
No, I think you misunderstood.
But yes.
Like, it's the same curriculum.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, if you go to community college...
You're getting the same general eds out of the way.
And you're in engineering, and you go to UCLA, and you're in engineering, general eds are going to be the same, which are completely useless.
Mm-hmm.
General eds, I think, are completely useless because it's just keeping you in the system longer. Like, a PhD should only take 10,000 hours, but it's oftentimes stretched throughout 4 or 5 years, sometimes even 7, because people have other things in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this can all be solved with the simple 10,000 hour rule. Anything that a person wants to master, Unless they have a photographic memory, they need to spend 10,000 hours on
And that's around 5 years, including sleep and food, right?
Yeah, something like that. So
Or 2, if that's all you're doing.
So maybe if we were going to
3, I don't know the math on that, but
if we want to just completely forget the whole part of college and what are your credentials, if we just, it was like a video game and you had like a hours marker, an hours stat, like you had like let's say somebody is
you have a stat tracker.
Yeah, you have you're an underwater welder. How many hours have you been underwater welding? Or how many hours have you been at the school studying? Because if you're at university for 4 or 5 years, now it's usually 5 years, not 4-year plan anymore. They've somehow managed to make people spend more time in the university. But you're not spending 10,000 hours in your major. You're spending the first 2 years probably doing 1 or 2 classes in your major, and then the rest are, like I said, general eds, and you're wasting your time. But to kind of, what were we talking about? We were talking about like just college in essence at the beginning. Like for people who need to hear, college is not always the answer. Trade school's a thing. Working is a thing.
Yeah, working's a thing.
And if you're in high
day trading's a thing.
American Psycho. Day trading moment.
It is.
But I think the most important step is to graduate high school.
Yeah, because if you can't graduate high school, that's kind of a red flag. Because
all high school is
high school is literally just showing up.
It's showing up and showing that I don't believe that the public education system is based on intelligence. It's
based on how well you take tests.
Not only that, but it's based on your responsibility. It's how your integrity. How many times
your discipline
can you tell yourself discipline? Okay, we're getting full circle. But like discipline, how many times can you show up to class and that stupid econ lecture your senior year, you have senioritis, how many times can you go to that econ lecture to get that piece of paper to show that you can sit through somebody talking at you instead of talking with you, and to show that you have the GE? I think to start I think Elon's trying to do something like that. Not that I'm in any way agreeing with what Elon does, but he's trying to like start his own like gifted youth program, like gifted youth university type deal.
Interesting.
Because there was this grandmaster chess player who believed you could raise a genius, you could raise a savant, and I think he had like 3 daughters, and they all had a photographic memory.
Wow.
And he trained them how to do it. Maybe. But yeah, he raised 3 girls, or maybe 3 kids, we'll say, and they all had photographic memories or something along the lines of that. So it's definitely what you are allowed to do. Like in a psychology book, there was records showing there was kids in an elementary school with a G and an asterisk next to their name, and kids who didn't. Now, as a teacher, these teachers were like, maybe this G with an asterisk means something special. Maybe we need to give these kids a little more homework, give them a little more harder, more rigorous material than the other kids. And they did that, and the kids showed better standardized testing scores or whatever. And it comes to find out that the G's with the asterisks was just the kids who took the bus to school.
Wow.
It didn't even matter. They weren't gifted in any way.
Interesting.
And they were treated differently, and they succeeded. They succeeded better than their peers, all because the educators thought that they were special.
Wow.
But in reality, every kid is special.
It's just how much they're being pushed.
Yeah.
And how much adversity you face is how much you grow. The more you suffer, the more you grow. That homework is a form of suffering because no one wants to do it. I never wanted to do the homework, but I was...
Me either. I hated homework.
I was lucky because in my grade school, we had this accelerated reading program. I don't know if you had it as well. But you'd pretty much read a book. For those who don't know, you'd read a book, and you'd take a test on it through this AR reading program, and it would test you on.
I got caught cheating a few times.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I never got caught cheating, but back to what I was saying. It tests you on how much you can comprehend the book. You know, pretty much tests you as well as if the book is longer, there's more questions. If it's a bigger book, there could be like 25 to 40 questions. If it's a shorter book, there could be 10 questions. And if we scored well, we were given a Jolly Rancher in my class. And you could take as many tests as you wanted, so we would get books from the library, go home, read these books, come back, and take tests because we got candy. And I didn't really get candy that much at the house. I wasn't there wasn't that much sugar. You know, getting candy was kind of like a lucky thing. Go to the liquor store, the Kmart, king size Kit Kat was what I would get. But we were all enjoying it. We didn't see it as a chore. We saw it as there's candy. You know, it was the carrot on the stick in front of us, and it got us to read more. And that might be why some of us like reading.
Now, to tie it back into addiction, there was a kid that I went to school with who took this accelerated reading program a little too seriously. And one year, because every quiz you take, it gives you a certain amount of points.
Yes.
If it has 20 questions, it's 20 points. At the end of the year, I think he accumulated 2,500 to 3,000 points.
Wow.
This kid, during recess, during the time where he would have to give his brain a break and socialize with other kids his age, he would sit there by the handball court and read. Or sit on top of the playground and read. And I don't know if it was his introverted nature or he was addicted to reading, but this addiction to reading became detrimental for his social health. And I still know him today. His social health is still horrible because he still reads more than he shows himself, and maybe it's because he's comfortable in his own mind, but that's a perfect example of addictive behavior because he was getting rewarded so much for something it became addictive or maybe habitual to the point where something else in his life suffered. Smart kid. Really smart kid.
You have to make sacrifice for whatever you choose. You know, he wanted to read books. He sacrificed his social life. Is that a bad thing? Maybe. Maybe not. You know? There's always going to be people like you out there. There's so many people out there that
they would rather
you could socialize with, but obviously they don't want to socialize. They want to read, so if that's what they want to do, they can. But maybe it was the opposite. Maybe it was his inability to socialize that led him to read, or it was a comfort to him. You know, maybe it wasn't like, oh, fuck this, I'm going to read. Maybe it was the opposite of, well, I'm going to read because I can't do this.
I just remember I hated reading as a kid, and it went from... I was so frustrated when I went to first grade because I thought I knew how to read because on the STAR reading test, you had that same thing, I assume. And I always had that 12.9 and above vocabulary.
Yeah, plus, or 13.5 plus, whatever it was.
So it puts you in this box of what your vocabulary is, and that was like the highest score you could go. 12th grade, 9th month, senior in high school, vocabulary. And I had that going into first grade. However, I couldn't read a book. I could not read a book in its structural entirety. And I remember coming home, and I was so pissed. I went to my dad, and I was like, Dad, I can't read. And I'm this 6-year-old who can't read still. Like, I could read maybe a few sentences, but I couldn't read a big book. It was a very daunting task to me. And then by the end of the week, I could read. Maybe it was just me being stubborn. But in third grade, one of the last books that I enjoyed, I've read, I would say, a mediocre amount of books in comparison to those bookworms and people who never read. I'm like probably somewhere in the middle. Hatchet. And I know there's...
Great book.
There's that big schizo graph about you read Hatchet and then The Path Between and all these outdoorsman books or whatever. But Hatchet was the last book that I remember enjoying in elementary school because it appealed to the young boy imagination. You're stranded alone and you have to survive. Maybe that's a human instinct, whatever. But I remember there was a 6 of us. We'd all read different books, but we'd sit at the 6 same computers in the library and take 6 tests.
Oh, wow.
Well, the librarian was a lot smarter than us third graders assumed, and she saw that all of us were taking these tests at the same time, and we all got busted.
Oh.
And all of our points got revoked or whatever. But we all just got so lazy, and we found a way to break the system. We at the first chance that we got, we broke the rules.
Well, you never know how much you can break until you get caught. That's for sure. I mean, I definitely broke the rules and was like testing grounds, you know?
Do you think addiction, in a way, is you breaking the rules to the point of no return?
I believe...
Do you think it's like a catastrophe phenomenon?
I believe that you can recover from addiction. There's many cases that have shown that. Okay. But I feel like it somewhat is because you're constantly pushing your normal. Like, oh, I feel normal, this is normal. And then it's not normal, and you go, okay, I'm here now, I might as well keep going. There is no remedy. I might as well just keep doing this. There is no concession.
Yeah.
There is no realization. It is just, you're going to keep going because you can't live without it until you die. And, you know, it's fucked up, but, you know, dying in today's world doesn't really mean shit because we don't really get to die very, very meaningful deaths anymore. Most of us...
We fade away.
Most of us listening, yes. We're going to fade away. We're just going to die in a hospital bed. We're going to die in our sleep. We're going to, you know... It's not like we're going to be dying at some major event or where something really mattered for humans, you know? Hopefully I don't get put in a nursery home. That would fucking suck. Because then I would just want to die at that point because your family doesn't even want to see you anymore because you're such a gloom. People don't even like to see you dying.
That goes back to the valuing of the family unit.
Yeah. It's like, wouldn't you want to be with your family in those last years? But some people just can't stomach the fact that their family member is fading away and they don't want to see it. Or, you know, I believe that, you know, if there's a lot of love in your family and you treated your family with love, they will take care of you. I don't think they'll just jump the gun and throw you in the nursery home unless there's some agenda.
I also think that the fracturing of the family unit stems from people becoming addicted to their career. And a career is oftentimes, in today's society, valued more than a large family. Like, you have all these middle-aged men and women who, well, marriage has just been devalued since jump.
Yeah.
It's no longer this holy spiritual tie anymore. It's become a legal obligation, and I think that's why a lot of marriages end in divorce. I always say, if you're a guy, marry your best friend and date a woman because at least you can trust your best friend with your money.
True.
But I mean, you have all these young people who are no longer having kids and they're valuing their careers more, and maybe it's not an addiction, maybe it's a pressure from the society we have. But I think that's led to the deterioration of the family unit.
I think it's a less happy lifestyle. There's definitely a balance. You know, the family unit, from looking at history, the family unit was a lot different. You'd have your family in your home, and you would be doing, you know, let's say we'll go back to the Roman Empire time. The average person that didn't live in Rome or in the city and were in the rural countryside They had a farm, and everyone helped around at the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone helped around at the farm, and I don't know if they were happy or not. I wish I could talk to someone from that time.
The closest thing we have is meditations.
But yes,
It's the
exactly.
closest thing we have.
Exactly, and those people, you know,
Great
they
book, by
didn't
the
have
way.
a career.
No.
You know, they didn't have a...
They had survive.
They had survive.
Objective survive.
Objective survive, bro. It's fucked up, but they were probably a lot happier than people are now. People now are a lot more pressured, like you said, to provide and not be... I'm pretty sure it's always in the back of our mind that we don't want to be homeless. You know, no one wants to be homeless, or, you know... a lot of people, I think, just don't want to have to be somewhere where they have to swallow their pride to the point where they need to ask for help, and they want to just focus on their career. But there is a balance, you know? Think about what you're going to have that really matters to you. I mean, your check matters, but if you don't have a happy family, you know, or a happy life, your job doesn't mean shit. Only to the other people does it matter. The face value people you meet every day, and they ask you, what do you do? And you tell them you have this bitchin' job, you make this money. To them, it might matter superficially, but at the end of the day, you go home, you're by yourself. That's a very, very gray life to live, and I wouldn't want to live that life.
To get Meditations is a book wrote by an emperor, Marcus Aurelius. If anybody's listening to this and wants to know what Meditations is, it's a great book. But anyways, yeah, that small talk as we've developed in our society in America. Oh, how are you doing? Good. How are you? Oh, I'm okay. And then you go on about your day. Where the, oh, how are you is not even, it's not a meaningful question.
Not genuine.
No, it's small talk.
It's just a formality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a how are you? It's how are you? It's automated. It's robotic.
Very automated. I feel like it doesn't feel ingenuine when you really put emotion into your words, because people don't really... I see in public that people don't really talk with as much emotion. I mean, you see a group laughing, but in small talk like we're talking about, you know, people say, how are you? It's very, like you said, automated. When I say, how are you, I'm not saying that I'm not automated. I'm sure there's times where I don't notice it and I probably sound like a robot. But I try to have a smile and, you know, light up my face and reciprocate the energy. And
I think since COVID, everybody's been wearing a mask. I want to see how this affected
the children.
I want to see in 10 years, we're going to have this cabin fever, stir crazy generation where they were forced to wear masks.
The 2016 children. Because they're 4 years old.
Yeah.
And then that's when they start hanging out with kids.
Yeah.
And it's just all fucked up.
They don't see facial cues anymore. They have to speak louder because they're wearing a mask. And it was so funny to me when they tried to remedy this by making like hard plastic masks that were see-through, so you could see the person. I'm not going to get started on the pandemic, but I want to see what these kids are like. And how many years would it be?
I don't know. We'll say...
When will they be teenagers?
We'll say if they were born in 2016, they will be teenagers 13 years from then. So 2029 is when they will start becoming teenagers.
Yeah, when 2029 rolls around and I'm walking around downtown and I see all these teenagers, I'll see if it's the same age group that's causing trouble or if they're like our generation where they're stuck in their phones. Or if it's worse.
Or if they're even outside at all.
Yeah, or even if they're... Maybe downtown won't be a ghost town. They won't know what to do.
I think as long as there's liquor, there'll always be bars downtown.
Or they're stuck in VR chat.
There's always going to be addiction. People are addicted to going to the bars. How many people do you know are always going, let's go to the bars?
Well, my age group, almost everybody.
Yeah, even if it's...
Everybody at university, after finals is over or after like a Friday night, hey, let's go to the bars, or hey, let's go get a drink. or hey, let's hang out. That's still a commonality in our generation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God.
Yeah. The bars aren't a bad thing. I'm not saying the bars are.
We do not condone the consumption of underage drinking.
Yes, we do not condone the consumption of underage drinking. But I would rather have people at bars hanging out than people not out at all.
Yeah.
In their room, on their setup, their tri-monitor setup. Who knows what these kids have? I bet there's some 4-year-old right now or 5-year-old that has a tri-monitor setup somewhere.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
There was always that one kid who had, who was just always kidded with the new shit. And he'd always be like, oh, yeah, I have the new Xbox. I have the new... It's like, damn. So you don't have a Nerf gun? You don't go outside? No.
Speaking of having a life that doesn't mean anything, I know it's become a big issue these days. Men and women won't really know how to interact and have those healthy relationships anymore. On top of the devaluing of the family unit,
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen to attraction and kids having the schoolyard crush or something along those lines?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but my experience with the internet at the very beginning was sexual. I was exposed to pornography at a very young age, and that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's not.
And I think that a negative thing that we're going to see in this pornographic, saturated social media era that we live in is a lot of these kids aren't going to want to pursue women or each other, for that matter. I'm not saying it has to be the man is the pursuer, but I'm just trying to say that I have a fear that they will be less intimate with one another than our generation already is.
Yes. Intimacy is
Dying.
being lost.
It's dying.
It's being lost. And intimate doesn't just mean having sex. People get those skewed, I feel like. Having sex can be intimate. It's not always intimate. But being intimate is being vulnerable. And I don't think people do that. People don't,
No, so intimacy, yeah. I talked about somebody who has issues being intimate.
Right?
I mean,
I do as well.
Being vulnerable. You see all those videos on the internet of men who, at the end of the day, are vulnerable with women, always get bitten in the ass for it, and that's because quote unquote real men or real women arguably don't exist anymore. Nobody has respect for themselves as if we ever did.
Mm-hmm.
That intimacy maybe is a myth. Maybe it doesn't exist. But I'm overlooking the vast majority of married couples who actually enjoy intimacy, or significant others who enjoy intimacy.
Yes.
That at our young age, I guess, we just haven't found yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a problem, but I believe that timing is everything, and timing is timing, and
is not to go on another tangent, but is anything a coincidence? Or is it just the stupid universe working?
I don't think anything is coincidence. I view it as probability. You got to think about how probable it is for something to happen, and then if something does happen that seems like a coincidence, turns out to not be a coincidence, and there were motives to make it. Like, let's say you go to this party, and you're hoping not to see someone you have beef with. You're really hoping not to, and they show up at that party. A lot of people might think that's a coincidence that you just happen to show up, but you got to think about it in the grand scheme of things, in the universe of things, that there are other people living other lives than you, and it takes a humble person to focus on not the one leaf but the whole tree, and not the one tree but the whole forest, and realize that other people are living lives, and it's likely for that person to show up at your party. You have beef with them, so that means you would have already had to interact. And now you're at this party, and you're really giving yourself shit. You're going, this is fucked up. This just has to be a coincidence, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think it is, you know? Things are likely to happen. Things really are likely to happen. Outlier-ish occurrences happen every day, and we don't realize it because it's not happening to us. So that's my thoughts on the coincidence probability thing. And you have to think about also what has happened leading up to that moment to consider it a coincidence, or just, to me, it's just an event. It's not a coincidence. It's not this freak of nature accident that this has happened at this time and somehow they were linked. To me, that is just an event in time. And it will be an event in time 10 minutes from now, an hour from now, a week from now.
So we can come to the conclusion that the day after $16 trillion was reported missing from the Pentagon, 9/11 happened.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's not a coincidence.
It's definitely not a coincidence. That is a completely
not a coincidence.
I would love to talk about that. It's not a coincidence.
Government watch list.
You can look at the Supertramp album cover, and it has, you know how the waitress has the plate? You can look in the back of it. There's the Twin Towers, and the letter lines up, the G or whatever, it lines up. It's a 9, or the whatever it is. It says 9/11, and the towers are the 11. And that album came out in like 1980 or 1970 or something.
Mm.
And, you know,
so is that a coincidence?
I think that is not a coincidence. It was a sign. It was an event that...
So the Simpsons are always right, is what you're saying.
I mean, the Simpsons have predicted... Don't quote me on it, but I've seen all those pictures. I'd have to have watched The Simpsons to really believe it. And that sounds really funny. Oh, I need to watch The Simpsons to really believe it, you know? But, you know, people need to realize that we are just ants in the world, and there are locusts, like the movie Bugs Life, that are controlling everything. They have money. They have so much money that they could literally fucking have a blow dryer filled with $100 bills, blow dry, and shoot this money everywhere, lose it all, and it wouldn't even crack a dent in their account. It's just that much money. For 24 hours, they're blowing all this money. That is a real thing. All the people that own the banks, all the people that own the parent companies, you know?
Rothschilds, we're talking about y'all.
Yeah, real shit.
Rockefellers, all those people.
And, you know, the people that own this money are a part of groups that have been around for a long time. So,
actually,
I'm not going to say anything further because I don't want to get killed.
No, I don't want to be suicided.
Yeah. I would never kill myself. I would never kill myself.
We would never kill ourselves.
Yes.
But let's actually talk about something that's kind of related with that, is a conspiracy theory.
Well, the word conspiracy theory was coined by the CIA. They created the term.
Yeah.
So what does that have to say?
But, like, okay. I'm glad you got that out the way. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. But a conspiracy, I think, it's a lot like the word addiction, where it's haphazardly used and it's meant to water things down.
Oh, it's a conspiracy theory, bro. You're crazy.
But when these conspiracy theories turn out to be true, we have to stop calling them crazy.
Yes.
And I'm actually the first person to go, you're fucking crazy. Like, that's not true. Like, I'm a skeptic in the biggest sense. Where
it's safer to be a skeptic in today's world. I don't blame you.
Well, I just try not to give in to the media's sensationalism that, as a journalist, you should stray away from, because it undermines your credibility to give in to sensationalism. But it's...
Fuck sensationalism.
It's become rampant in news media.
I used to always think that those people, you know, you always had that one family member at Thanksgiving or the family gathering.
Who messed it all up.
Who was just talking all this crazy shit. But when I was a kid, I would kind of listen, you know, because I still have enough respect for the person to at least listen to what they have to say.
Oh, yeah.
You can judge them, but listen to what they have to say first. And don't just go and place your judgment before they even finish what they're talking about. Listen to what they have to say. And, every thought, I'm sure every scientist, before what they were studying was proven, was a theory. And I'm sure people weren't calling them crazy. Maybe they were. Maybe there were people calling Stephen Hawking
Look at the dude who invented...
crazy.
No, look at the dude who invented penicillin.
Yeah, people were calling him... And it grew from the fungi, right? It was a fungi that grew and...
It was a culture that he developed. I don't know if it was on accident or not, but nobody would take it, so he gave himself an illness, and he cured it with penicillin. He was his first subject.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, you're a crazy scientist, you don't know what you're talking about. And then he invented penicillin. And, I'm not saying that these everyday conspiracy theories, like Michelle Obama is a man, is the next penicillin. But, I just think conspiracy theories should be, of course, taken with a grain of salt, but at least listened to.
It's a word that has a lot of baggage on one side. Yes, negative connotation on one side. However, a lot of conspiracy theories proven to be true, and we live in a world full of espionage. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, we live in a world full of espionage. It's not rainbows and butterflies when it comes to international government. There are things happening, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's heard it before. I'm a crazy son of a bitch. I'm going to get assassinated if I keep talking. So, yeah, conspiracy theory, it's a weird... it's because there's people who are talking about Bigfoot and aliens. And they call that a conspiracy theory. Well, first of all, for it to be a conspiracy theory, there has to be something conspiring taking place, right?
Well, a conspiracy is two parties collaborative effort to undermine something.
Yes.
That's what a conspiracy in essence is.
Yeah, I don't think Bigfoot and all that stuff, aliens, the pyramids is a whole different thing, because I'm getting sidetracked, but when people talk about aliens, they talk about conspiracy theories, I go, okay, I'm going to take this with a lot of salt, because there really is no evidence that we know of, but
hey, we had a lot of free time back then. A lot of free time.
Yeah,
and a lot of slaves.
What were we doing? Okay, we're going to build these pyramids that just happen to be perfectly placed on the equator in the center of the planet. Down to the inch? The centimeter? I don't know.
Do you know what the meter is derived off of? The length, a meter?
Your leg.
No. What I have read and what I have seen, I could be wrong, but it's like the distance it takes for light to travel, as we perceive it.
Okay.
So, as humans perceive light to travel, that is the meter. And when we break it down, that's how we get these centimeters, or
interesting.
Yeah, it's how we perceive light to travel in distance, I think.
Okay.
Could be wrong, but I think that's what it is.
Interesting. It's also weird to talk about the pyramids, and were these people addicted to why? I mean, does it take an addiction to get all these slaves, all this manpower and infrastructure that you have to make just a structure that you're not even going to live in? You're just making this structure geometrically perfect to align with the stars. There must be something else at play.
Yeah, well, there's pyramids all over the world, and then there's Stonehenge and Easter Island, and all these phenomenon that we don't know why, or we've tried to figure out why, and nobody can agree on it. Mm-hmm. But I guess that's our conspiracy nutshell. Yeah, we don't know anything.
I think it's interesting to talk about it. And one thing I find really interesting. Holy fuck! One thing I find really interesting about history, is that
the victors write the history books. Or not that.
Not that. The fact that all of these different cultures have fabricated folklore, or we say fabricated, but how is it that in some way there's a consistency of a fantasy element in all these cultures? Do you think that these are just myths and stories that some old man from the mountain thousands and thousands of years ago just told? Or do you think something really happened to the people for them to, go and make drawings of it and really document it and pass down the stories?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you think possibly could have even happened? Or do you think that it's bogus, it's a myth? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it was touched upon recently that the inception of Christianity, it was like during like a very wet season or whatever, and these people, this like sect of Christians, they were drinking this water that happened to be compromised with a psychedelic fungus, and all these people were drinking this water all the time.
Oh, wow.
So they were
tripping balls.
They were tripping balls looking at the sun.
Holy fuck.
And they saw this pattern in the sky, and Christianity happened, I guess.
Interesting.
Like, that's a one-off instance.
Yes.
Where it is the guy on the mountain spewing nonsense because they're drinking water that was contaminated with fungus. But when you have 3,000 or more different religions with all these different gods, and you believe that yours was the real one, here comes the, is it a coincidence or is it probability? Because, okay, that's another good topic of conversation. Somebody's faith. If, like, I'm going to just completely disregard your question about if I think
yes,
it's bogus or not.
Answer it, because there's consistencies along the whole board that all these people have created things that we deem fantasy-like. All of them. That's consistent in many cultures in ways that you just suggested. Gods, mythos, all the different folklores and stories. Them thinking that they're right or not is a different topic. But the fact that all these people have came up with their own versions or have seen different things in these different lands, what do you think about that? Or do you think that there are psychedelic commodities all across the world that these people were eating and foraging, or not commodities, but just substances that they're eating, and everyone's tripping out and having their own trip? But they're passing it down. It's not like if I had a trip, my first instinct isn't to go, oh my goodness, I need to pass this down to my generation before me, and they need to pass it down, and they need to pass it down, and we need to keep this story going because it teaches us a lesson. At the end of the day, they all teach you a lesson about the human psyche or the human habit.
To answer your question, I think as humans, forever and ever, we have always needed to improve, control, and
create.
Yeah, improve, control, and create. I'm not saying that humans are broken down to these three fundamental things.
No,
but
that's something that we've done, though.
Yeah, we always need to improve, control, and create.
And we do backstab.
Yeah.
In doing those things.
Yes. And in order to do those things, we needed either something that we could fall back on, or something that could give us hope, or something that could explain something that we don't have the answer to. So all of these faiths were created. Like, I'm sure the whole concept of infidelity or adultery is not a 21st century thing. Like two cavemen are living next to each other. They both have wives, and one fucks the other one's wife, and then he kills the other guy. Like, in a sense, like, it's natural to feel this way, and it just so happens that the Christian faith has considered that adultery and that it's wrong. And actually, I think that let me break it down. The reason why we have all these mythos and legend, folklore, whatever, it could be one, to explain something that we don't understand. Two, to justify something.
Mm-hmm.
Or to not maybe justify, but to make sense of something that we can't explain.
Mm-hmm.
Or three, again, people had a lot of free time. Maybe it was just for fun, and they needed a story.
I agree with your first point. To explain something they don't understand. People thought that lightning storms were the gods.
Yeah.
People thought that the rain were the gods. People thought that the drought was the gods.
Yeah, like
you know?
they couldn't explain back then that when the sun beats down on Earth, evaporation happens, those molecules get stored in the atmosphere, precipitation happens, and the water cycle. They couldn't explain that.
Yes.
So they came up with this mythos that all these gods cried, and if we had a dry season because we did something bad. Yeah, they didn't understand that. So yeah, I think it's because all these things were created so that they could explain things that they didn't understand.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Yeah, no, I wish I could talk to someone that, like, studied that shit. You know, that...
Like Galileo?
No, like, someone who studied mythos and shit. Like...
Oh.
Like, there's people out there, you know, that's what they do for a living. They could explain to us, you know, maybe the instance when they went, okay, this is how we're going to explain it. Because I'm sure it wasn't just something happened, or maybe it was, there was an event, and they go, okay, this is the only thing that can explain this. You know, there's this god doing this. Like, how do they just make that jump from here to here? You know, like, there has to be something that happened. Either they had a really big MDMA trip, and they just saw something they weren't supposed to see, or, you know, that would be a really cool thing to discuss. But now we know how it works, apparently, and apparently space is real, so we're not just in a bubble.
Well, I think that when we're discussing mythos and myth, or things that... A myth is something that is not true,
Yes.
right? A myth is something that is proven to not be true.
Mm-hmm.
That
That's a myth. Mythbusters. There you go.
We have an alternative explanation that our reality is more true than that of the myth. And myth busted. Are you telling me that in Greek mythology, they're like, oh yeah, on that big mountain over there, all the gods are over there. But don't climb up the mountain. But don't go over there.
I would try to climb the mountain.
Yeah, I'd Sisyphus my ass up that fucking mountain. I would be like, you're telling me the gods, Persephone's up there? You're telling me
Persephone,
she's up there? And I can just go see her? Like, really?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, bet.
Yeah.
You're telling me
I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna go. Shit. I'm gonna go, bruh. I'm gonna fight those wild boar and those lions.
The innards of my brain and the enigmas caused me to climb this mountain for this god. And then you turn out it's just nothing.
Did you know that? In Greece there was lions and wild boars?
Yes.
That's crazy.
That's why there's paintings of them wrestling lions
Bro,
and shit.
Fuck that.
Dude.
I'm not going out there. Actually, maybe I wouldn't climb the mountain. I'd get my ass eaten by a lion. But no, like, I think that the Greeks couldn't have believed that.
I don't know. They had time to think about shit like that. We don't have as much time to think, you know?
No, we're caught up in devaluing our family and chasing our career.
And being addicted to things.
Yeah.
You know, and...
Addictions are distractions.
They are distractions. Being addicted to the right things, however, could be good for you, but it all comes down to what you're willing to sacrifice. You know, when you start becoming an alcoholic, you are sacrificing your brain cells and the people who love you, because, I mean, it depends what kind of alcoholic you are. You could be a sad alcoholic, you could be an angry alcoholic, you could be the fighter, you could be the driver.
Drug.
You can be,
Out of your friends, which one are you?
Yeah, I mean, so it all depends, but deep down, people that are addicted, they know they're addicted, but they don't think they have the power to stop, and it comes down to self-discipline. And
so I guess to final thought for me before this is over, before we end, is if you're addicted to something and you're depressed, try to get a 6-pack first.
Yes.
Because I don't think you'll be depressed.
Wait, what kind of 6-pack?
That's up to you to decide. I don't know. 6-pack covers that.
Patch Blue Ribbon.
Yeah, whatever.
Duke University.
But no, like if you find yourself becoming addictive and you want your life to change, suffer, make things uncomfortable.
Yes.
Get that 6-pack and try to break whatever addiction it is, whether that be through enduring suffering and becoming physically fit, mentally fit. Try to break your addictions. Try to break everything that holds you back.
Yes, I agree.
And I guess that could be
that's your final. That's your farewell. My farewell is going to be, if you are addicted, you should probably go out to the woods and try to fight a bear and see if you're worthy to live. If you fight that bear with a blade and you win, is someone going to really tell you to stop drinking at that point? Is someone really going to tell you to stop drinking?
If I'm going out in the woods, I'm trying to get that skinwalker to...
I'm trying to find the Wendussy, bro.
The Wendussy?
I'm trying to find the Wendussy. But anyways, fight a bear, prove your worth as a human. If you don't want to do that, do what he said. And with that, we will leave you on this Sunday night with those thoughts. And as always...
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, and happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving.